So we've got Karl White from MVFRUCKS, who is the rugby lead for MVFRUCKS, and we brought him on so we could ask him a few questions about it. I've spoken about many times on the podcast my own involvement with the program, which has made me super keen to get Karl on and talk to him. So first of all, thank you for joining us, Karl. How are you doing?
Yeah, no worries. Well, thank you for having me on. All is well, thank you.
Very good. That
Excellent.
is music to our ears. To start off with, very simple question. Where do you see man versus fat and man versus fat rugby? Like where do you see it at the moment in kind of the grand scheme of things with man versus fat? And where do you see it going in the future? What's the ambition?
I think the ambition. Ask me again in 3 years' time, you'll get a very different response in hindsight, I guess. But
Yeah.
no, I think if you to compare the rugby to the football and scale of economy, etc. Participation numbers, that sort of thing. You're looking at anywhere between 60 and 80 rugby clubs, I think, across the UK. To put that figure into context, we've currently got just shy of 160 football locations, and we're 8 years into Manvfat football. So yeah, just to give that a bit of context there as well, really.
So, I mean, I guess to explain to anyone who's, I guess, not familiar with maybe the specifics of what Manvfat tries to do and what it tries to offer people, could you give people kind of a flavour of what the inspiration behind it and the goal of what it is you're trying to offer people?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we were created just over 10 years ago, more as an online digital platform initially. We come about due to the fact that 80-85% of people that attend your more traditional sort of weight loss platforms are female. So there's clearly a gap in the market, so to speak. For us guys that want to improve our health, not just lose weight. It's the mental, physical, all-round side of things that we've grown to understand more as we've developed and evolved as Manvfat. I think it's fair to say. Yeah, that was where Manvfat football was then created. And yeah, we're nearly 9 years into kind of that journey, I think it's fair to say. And then September 2024, so September last year, it was decided Manvfat Rugby should be a thing as well. And I think it's fair to say that we've never looked back since. I know it's only 7-8 months. Time has gone, but the reception that we've received within the rugby world has been amazing. And I think that to answer kind of that follow up question of what Manvfat actually is. It maybe sounds cliche to say it is what the individual makes it to be. And Dave, you can obviously maybe speak firsthand of that, and probably have in your previous podcast as well, as you touched on. But ultimately, it's a group of like-minded guys. As long as you're over 18, BMI 27.5, kind of come along, get involved. As I just touched on, you've got mental, social, physical well-being kind of improvements that we could all make, and then throw in there the weight loss element as well. Hopefully it's the perfect storm, as the saying goes. But yeah, I think the feedback we get from the guys, in terms of that social well-being element and expanding social circles is maybe not surprising anymore, but was initially. And that sounds so blasé to say something like that it's not surprising anymore, because that just shows the effect and positive impact that we've had, really.
I think it's really interesting. I mean, so I'm very much involved in grassroots rugby, and actually more on the playing side than I was for a little while. But I think one of the things that anyone who's involved in grassroots rugby will recognise is the social aspect of rugby clubs is kind of what binds it together. That's kind of the magic of what grassroots rugby is. But and as two old props, we're prime examples of this. When you sort of stop the regular playing but keep on the social side with the classic rugby culture of having a few jars watching the game, the effects are pretty apparent when you go around the clubs to what some of the old players tend to go through in terms of their health. How do you, I guess, what would be your pitch to someone who's maybe is still very much love sport, very much involved from a social perspective, but getting to cross that Rubicon back into picking a ball up and taking a bit of control of their own health and their own well-being.
Yeah, I guess really, I mean, again, not to continuously throw stats maybe during this, but you're looking at over 75%. Happy days. At least someone does here.
I've seen the dashboard. The dashboard's really good. I'm a big fan of the dashboard.
It's just brilliant, isn't it? I'm glad the feedback we've had is really good. The only maybe downside to it is that the guys that play both football and rugby are when's it at football? So yeah, obviously that will evolve over time as well, should we say? But yeah, I think from wanting to get involved, over 75% of our guys, from a rugby point of view, so 200 players currently, haven't played rugby or sport for 10 or more years. Obviously a considerable amount of time to be out of sport or out of the game. And to look at the average BMI of a player within rugby is actually 40, whereas in the rugby side of things you're looking around 35, 36. So there's a big difference there in terms of that, the sort of the avatar of a Manvfat rugby player. And I was told this, you're rugby guys, I'm not necessarily a rugby man, but getting to know the sport on a very surface level, I think it's fair to say now. So we won't go too much into any rugby detail, potentially. But I think I was told, sorry, that the guys will be bigger. Because generally, typically, you're to be stereotypical here, your rugby player is a bigger lad than your footballer, and that has rung true within the Manvfat world as well.
Yeah, well, we promise we won't start talking about what specific complex moves you should bring in to maximize.
No, but so there's one thing that I want to draw out is have there been any success stories? And it doesn't need to be just from Manvfat rugby. But are there any success stories within the Manvfat world that stick with you to make you realise that this is more than just people coming together to play a sport? That it's making real differences to real people out there. And what are there success stories that kind of sit with you and think there's something going on there that's quite special?
Yeah, I think there's some that probably can't be shared in terms of it being so personal to individuals. I mean, there's a lot out there in terms of our 10-year celebratory videos that we had, around being able to conceive, organ donation, and even that, things like that roll off the tongue, in terms of the impact that it's had. But obviously, the guys have achieved that themselves. We've maybe provided that catalyst, that platform, but it's what you boys get out of it, as in the players, the members themselves. But even I'm fortunate enough to coach at the Leicester Rugby Club, and there's a lad there that's September we launched there, and he's nearly at 25% of his body weight losing. Wow. He's at 23% or something, which is frightening. And only last night was having the conversation that his colleagues won't believe him that he's not on one of the weight loss drugs. He's doing it naturally, so to speak. So again, there's caveats to being successful or improving your health and stuff from others. But I think one of the biggest losses that we've seen at Manvfat in ever is 52%.
Wow.
And that was from an individual in Coventry, Vlad, lovely guy. Again, I was lucky enough to coach him for a small amount of time, and over half of his body weight he lost. But really, one of the biggest, absolutely. Again, even that is bonkers, and we're talking again rugby specific. You're looking at over 50 percentage bonuses have been awarded since we've launched. So someone, over 50 guys have lost at least 5% of their body weight. And in Bristol alone, you're one of 19.
Yeah.
One of 19 that have done that since Bristol launched in late Jan. Absolutely crazy in terms of what we've seen. And one thing that we're hoping to replicate again in time with rugby, but we have an amazing losers match in football. And that's the top 40 weight loss losers across a year, and the qualification criteria this year was 32%. So someone might have lost 30% of their weight and still not qualified, for that top 40 place. That gives you a bit of an idea from a purely weight loss stand. Without even mentioning, again, I know we've touched on, but the social side of things, guys are booking extra activities to go and, play extra games. They're, charity kind of matches, walks, marathons, 10Ks, all these sorts of things that the guys are doing. Park run is a very popular thing for our guys as well. So, yeah, the list kind of goes on really.
So that sounds like it's a big thing. So starting by doing something, I guess, recognisable on both sides of the football and the rugby.
Yeah,
you see that catalyzes them into being more motivated to try other forms of exercise as well then. So with that, do you offer kind of a guidance, or is it just you're just trying to create that initial impetus for them?
it's a bit of both, I think it's fair to say, really. So you know, the community is built by the community, as cheesy as that sounds as well.
Yeah.
But you know, it's again like you kind of get out what you put in from a weight loss and a social point of view. But to use the football kind of side of things, we're a small-sided provider, so 5, 6, 7 aside, in the same way as we do in rugby. But over half the clubs have an 11-aside team. Now, the majority of people that joined the 5, 6, 7 aside wouldn't have thought they'd be playing 11 aside in 6 months, in 12 months, in 18. And we've had, it's only 3 or 4, but a couple of guys from the rugby side of things have gone into full contact 15s again. So you know, to provide that kind of access back into your more traditional grassroots kind of element is brilliant. We wouldn't expect everyone to do that because obviously you get to a certain age, as we all probably know here as well, and you don't want the knocks and bruises and stuff. But you know, it's great to be that platform to that activity. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've busted my hip just from going on a long walk in the country on Saturday. So very sympathetic to anyone around the country who's feeling the strain.
Yeah, but I can speak from like a Bristol specific point of view. Like I know that. So we've only been running for 8-9 weeks ish. There's already like a group that's been set up where everyone, if they want to go on a park run together, they can do it. There's one lad who's never played rugby before properly, 15s, and he's joined his local rugby club because he's got a real bug for it from playing touch rugby, and that's just in 8 or 9 weeks. And we've got like a wave of new people that have joined just a couple of weeks ago. So it's like, I think that's why I get quite excited by it, because I've seen the impact it's having on people, and I think that's just like a really small like microcosm of what the social side of it's able to achieve as well, let alone just the weight loss aspect. It is having a real impact on people. And like I laughed the other week because someone said that this was the highlight of the week, and I laughed not because I thought that was silly. I laughed because it's the same for me, because a lot of the people signing up are like, they're adult, they might have kids, they might have really busy work lives, and this is like the only thing that men are doing for themselves, and I think they're really appreciating it, and they're putting it as a priority. So like that's why I'm like keen to keep pushing this, because I think there's something really good there, especially within the rugby space. It's clearly worked in the football space, and you touched on the Amazing Losers match, slightly tongue-in-cheekly, but if in future there is a rugby one and you need 2 ex-prop podcast hosts to coach a rugby Amazing Loser match, I could think of 2 chaps that would be more than happy to do that.
Very, very plodding and set piece dominated rugby game. Be very keen to help out.
Yeah,
but no, it's interesting because even on that, you know, we look to we're building kind of our reputation and brand, I guess really within the rugby, rugby element. And from a footballing side of things, we've had some pretty amazing, if I may use that one, amazing managers. So we've had Peter Taylor, obviously ex-England boss. You know, he was one of the Amazing Loser managers. Terry Butcher, Paul Parker, Ian Holloway. So yeah, we've always tried to really boost it with that kind of celeb sort of thing as well.
So we'd have a bit of competition there, Rory.
We would have some competition.
Yeah, that's the kind of pantheon I see myself in, really. I mean, the big word that really stands out to me, among a lot of very positive things about this, but the word that you've come back to a few times is community, and I think that's such an important element to this, right? Of not just creating communities, but giving someone a community to go towards. How are you scaling this to I guess to grow it nationwide and maybe even beyond if that's part of the ambition? But how can other people help to scale it if they want to grow it from the grassroots up? What's available to them to join this type of community?
Yeah, so our plans are initially kind of up until Feb 2026, which is crazy because it's 10 months away. But our plans are around 18, 20 locations by that date. We're at 9 locations currently, so that's been pretty quick. Growth since September of the 3 pilot kind of areas that we looked into. Bristol is amazing. It's up there, nearly 45, 50 players. If we have another few of them, land on the laps, so to speak, in terms of really accelerate, then we can look for more locations maybe quicker. But within the next 10, 12 months, 18, 20 clubs we'll be looking to have live. 15 of them are kind of set in stone at the minute. We know where they are. We've got, it might be partners lined up. We've got coaches in place, etc., etc. Beyond that, I think it depends on the success of them initial 18, 20 as a phase. We're having some really positive conversations with national governing bodies, with rugby league clubs, rugby union clubs. So that is only going to grow, I think, as the more evidence and the more numbers comes through that it does work in rugby as well as football. In terms of touching on how guys can get involved, ManvfAtRugby.com. In terms of going on there, we have a huge list of 20 other locations of expressing your interest, but also we're open to suggestion in terms of if 15, 20 guys say Southend or I fancy one there, we can have a look at it. If there's a need and demand for it, we're up for it. And then finally, just touching on kind of your across the pond sort of thing, and maybe expanding out. We have Manvfat Soccer operating in the US, and that's really going big currently. We hope to have, I think it's 25, 30 clubs live in the same sort of time scale. So ambitions are, let's see where it takes us. Again, I'm not involved in the soccer element, but quite happily go out to South Africa, Australia, or somewhere like that, and look to deliver Fat Rugby.
Yeah, let's keep you on the rugby lead for the time being before we fuel your ambitions to go globetrotting. Because I think what we're doing on the rugby side, or what you're doing on the rugby side, is really, really exciting. So from I guess to clarify, so if you've got a group of blokes, let's take Southend for example, where I may or may not know 15 to several dozen blokes in this area who are either current or former rugby players who maybe we could do with shedding a few more pounds. So if we just band together and say, look, we want to put this together, do we just get in touch and say, look, we think this is an area? And then from your side, how do you then support that potential community?
Yes, so we would, very low level, look to put a WhatsApp group together, potentially initially, to help build that kind of, again, that community sort of feel to it, and build that excitement, that vibe. We would then be looking into potential partners within that area, local grassroots clubs potentially. And then we'd be looking at 3, 4G surface, which is something that we look to operate on as a minimum, because it allows us to deliver 50 weeks of the year as we do. Obviously floodlights, etc., that sort of thing. And then the final couple of bits of the jigsaw, almost from a delivery point of view, is a referee and a coach. Outside of that, it's let's market the hell out of it and see how many we can get. In terms of looking at that launch date, should it be in the diary?
Yeah, great. So it's real direct action kind of thing. Let's just set up a WhatsApp group and get it going then. So move fast and get it set up as quickly as you can. So I think to anyone who's listening, and I can name one or two who are who should be thinking about this if they're not already, that's a way to do it. From your strategy, Karl, what's your next step then? Do you think you mentioned that you're speaking to lots of rugby league clubs and rugby union clubs and national bodies. What can you tease us with on the horizon of, where's the next big announcement coming for Man vs Fat Rugby?
Yeah, I think. Well, we recently announced Huddersfield Giants as a partner only last week, and Castleford Tigers are on board as well. There's obviously not as many top level rugby league clubs as there may be as Union, in terms of obviously Union potentially being the more popular sport across England. I think it's fair to say. So yeah, there's not too many, but there could be a couple more not too far away, with certain animals in their names as well. So yeah, that might narrow it down a little bit, but not too much.
That rules out Northampton Saints, doesn't it? That's not really an animal.
But yeah, no, we're very open to working, with not only Premiership sort of standard clubs. You're looking at Championship level and lower. We know there's a lot of good work that goes on within communities and grassroots as well. We've just to go into that, really, one of our kind of marketing strands is our grassroots project. So we would look to partner up with local grassroots clubs. We put a referral code in. X amount, per referral code kind of would be paid out. Guys from that grassroots club could spend it on kit equipment to benefit them. And, in turn, obviously, we're not only improving people's health, but getting more people involved, back in the game, at a lower level, to then potentially build into it, as we've touched on already, back into 15s, or just, being physically active.
So I think that referral system sounds really positive. So if there's a custodian or a chairman or a member of a club out there listening, and they say, we've got a 3G, 4G pitch, we've got floodlights, we've got the facilities, would you be open for them to reach out to you and say, like, we've got these facilities, we're really keen to kind of work with you, we like the sound of that referral system? Are you happy with that sort of reach out to come directly from clubs saying, we've got everything you need, what do you need from us to get us off the ground?
Yeah, and we've already seen that, and I think it's one of the biggest stumbling blocks at the minute has been that 3-4G Astro. A number of clubs, good clubs, have come to us. I say only, but they've only got grass. And pros and cons to that, obviously, from wind, from the weather side of things and everything else. But yeah, we do look to say that 3-4G. So yeah, as you say, Dave, anyone kind of out there as such that's listening, etc., then do feel free to get in touch with us. Obviously, we do have a bit of a plan, and we're looking at kind of them. I know when we first spoke a few weeks ago around kind of them rugby hotbeds, in certain areas and towns and cities, your obvious sort of ones. But that's not to say that they're the only places to launch.
Yeah, I think that one of the amazing things about where rugby is very popular, so take Wales for example, you can go to what looks like quite a small village in Wales, and they'll still have 3 clubs there. They'll all hate each other, but they will all be there. So there's the chance to scale into even the smaller communities is definitely there. What's the stumbling block, if any? What's if we wanted to get this everywhere, we want to get this in every town in the country, and I think it's something that with the health of the nation being obviously very forefront in everyone's minds, really. What's the biggest stumbling block for you now, and what's needed to kind of get into that kind of mass market?
I think we're sometimes a very good secret, because we're obviously quite a small organisation. Even though we have nearly 9,000 men playing each week, it's a fairly decent size rugby club attendance or football club attendance on a weekly basis. But it's getting the message out there to the masses, and obviously there's only so much we can do from a marketing spend point of view to look at it in that way. But being on podcasts such as this and other ones, and getting that sort of exposure, local media, national press that we feature in through the case studies of the likes of yourself, Dave, that will be 10-15% hopefully soon, and lean on yourself and stuff.
Hopefully.
It's hopefully. I'm
at 8%. I'm at 8%. I'm on my way.
There we go. But no, we are a very good secret. but that's not a good thing, if you know what I mean. But say we can only really get out so far, and that's where I know I touched on a couple of times, as you said, that community side of it, that involvement with grassroots clubs, whether it, and the pro level clubs, all of them sort of partnerships. We're starting from a scratch in the rugby world, and we're very well known in football. Obviously, a very different sport and a very different makeup. So yeah, that's where the positivity early doors has said to us, actually, there is something in this. And that's where that 60 to 80 kind of clubs come from, and so hopefully we can achieve what we aspire to, and it could be beyond 80. But I think in terms of participation number and where the town cities population and stuff is, that's probably a realistic sort of ambition.
Yeah,
I think it's a great ambition, and it's, if you get 60 to 80 clubs across the country, you are reaching out to just tens of thousands of people. So that would be where we'd love to see it go as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I would say as well, I've seen it in the Bristol club, is that there's a number of people who've come across from the football program because they wanted to try out the rugby program, and I think it's worth flagging that that there is a range of skills that come to these sessions. And one thing I've been really impressed by is that there's every effort put in to make sure everyone feels included, and make sure everyone is able to take part as much or as little as they want to. So we've had people turn up, not have a clue how to play rugby, but they're still loving it, they're still enjoying it. So I know we're here to talk to mainly rugby fans out there, but if there is anyone listening who's just listening from a MVFAT point of view, and they've maybe taken part in football, perhaps it's also worth, I would personally encourage any MVFAT footballer to see if there's a rugby club nearby as well, because I've seen how it's benefited those coming over and trying a different sport. It's played differently. It's a different intensity to football, so there's added benefits, I think, to it being rugby beyond football, and vice versa. If a rugby player wants to try football, those options are there. So I think, from my perspective, I've seen how that's really worked.
It's interesting you say that, because in Cheltenham and Bristol, lads want to play a friendly against the two clubs. So there's a little bit of a thought in there of maybe a 20-minute rugby game at T1 touch, and then a 20-minute kind of small-sided football game is a bit of a summer sort of social between the two sports. Yeah,
it'd be interesting if there's a future where there could be some sort of Man versus Fat festival or something like that to bring factions of the clubs to one place for, I don't know, a weekend of touch rugby and five-a-side football, and see which MVFAT club comes out on top. That's just an idea. Yeah. I don't want to do your job for you, Karl. But
No, so even on that, mate, we've got again football. 1,000 guys will be attending Lilleshall in the summer, to play a MVFAT football festival. Too early to kind of integrate rugby into that, but next year, and even this year on a definitely a lower level scale than 1,000 players, we'd be looking to do a similar sort of thing with rugby. So smaller scale this year, but next year definitely looking to Lilleshall's huge. We could I say easily, there's a lot of work will go into it, but pretty easily attach rugby to that, and have probably one of the biggest events, not only in MVFAT kind of history, but around that kind of sporting sphere.
Yeah, I'd be super interested in that sort of thing, because I think, from my own greedy and selfish point of view, social content point of view, those sorts of things are absolute brilliant from your perspective to sell the product, because getting everyone together like that, it would be really exciting, especially if I'd get to take part. Even better. So I look forward to that. It sounds like MVFAT in general, the future looks really bright, and MVFAT rugby, I'm excited to see where it goes, and I'm really glad I saw that advert pop up for the Bristol club popping up, and I'm so glad I signed up to get on board, because it's been a real positive change in my own life, and the more that could be done, the better. And it sounds like you might be getting contacted from some people in Southend soon as well.
Every chance.
I set myself up for that one, didn't I? But No, it's really it's really good to hear that from you, Dave. And as I said at the start, it's really appreciated to have us as ManVFat kind of on the podcast to not only potentially celebrate yourself at your 8% loss, but also say getting that word out there, that message out there in terms of other people getting involved as well.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate you joining us, Karl, because it's a great idea. Anything that's pro community, anything that's pro men's health, that's something that we're excited by, and we want to help. And any vehicle that allows David to show his mercurial talents on the pitch, we're keen to find those avenues for him.
Not to throw any spoilers out there, but I've recently acquired a GoPro camera and a chest mount, so watch this space, because I will be bringing some live action footage of my mercurial talents. Watch this space.
I look forward to seeing that firsthand as well then.
Yeah, well, it's definitely going to be a case of it's going to feel like it was a lot quicker than it actually looks. I have a feeling, but it'll be good fun either way.
Like one of those 1930s sped up films to make it all look like.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. That's really interesting, and we can't wait to see where this goes, and we'll be doing our best to support it as much as we can, and watch out Southend, because there might be another club coming along soon.
Yeah, and we'll keep in touch for sure.
No, definitely. So there's definitely something in the podcast roadshow as well. Obviously, Cheltenham isn't too far away, so it could well be a little visit that we arrange for you guys there. So that would be a good one to look into as well.
Totally up for that. No, Karl, really appreciate your time joining us. Thank you very much for coming along, and we'll speak again soon, I'm sure.
Will do. Take care, gents.
Take care.
Thanks.